Game over, man. Game over.
Johnny. You're gonna need a bigger boat. Why so serious? Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 667 for December 22nd, 2025. I am JD Durant.
I am Brendan Cassidy. I also wish we would have just skipped this number completely.
Yeah.
It's gone right from 666 to 668.
Yeah. Well, I have to blame my son Sam for that one because we recorded some bonus content that's coming out later this week. So for those that are InSession Film VIPs or want to become one, you can be on the lookout for that. But we did a bonus content episode with Sam, and I brought up that this week was 667, and of course that's how he brought that into the conversation. So
that's
it was
how
top of mind.
That's how he introduced himself.
Yeah.
He started doing the hand gestures to introduce himself.
Yeah, so here we are. It is episode 667, which means last week was episode 666. So we hope everyone enjoyed that episode we did last week with the devil. Should I bring back the devil voice one more time?
I mean, I don't think you have any other reason to. This is probably your last opportunity.
The devil was here last week. The devil of Hollywood.
Was there
Anyway,
any
we had a lot of
review
fun with that.
Was there any review from this year, from 2025, that could have benefited from a devil voice? I don't know if there was anything that was very thematically fitting. Maybe Wake Up Dead
yeah.
Man?
No. What was I'm trying to think of some of those really bad Netflix movies from earlier in the year.
Oh, gosh.
I have
probably forgotten about all of them.
Under, like, I have tried to forget them. So
They're all in like just this one category where they all roll together.
yeah, I'm sure one of them could have used the devil voice to make them compelling in any sort of way.
Was there
at any rate.
was there another one of those like Russell Crowe led Pope's Exorcist movies or something like that from this year, or was the last one last year?
And so the Pope's Exorcist came out last year or a few years ago. I deeply loved it. I saw a clip going around on YouTube where Russell Crowe was on Joe Rogan's podcast. And I don't listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, but I do love me some Russell Crowe. And I found a clip of him talking about the Pope's Exorcist, which is why I wanted to see what it was all about. And at some point, he's just talking about some of the projects he's working on, and he brings up that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't say this very often, but in that moment, I wish that I was Joe Rogan, because I would have just stopped the conversation and we would have talked about the Pope's Exorcist for about 30 minutes. I would have been like, we're talking about this movie.
I genuinely would have, like, I say this a lot. There are a lot of movies that I would love to be a fly in the wall for how they were made and how they were pitched. But I think if there's one that I would put in the top of that specific list, it might be something like The Pope's Exorcist and how that got conceived.
I know. Well, and I would have asked him, it was a big missed opportunity on Joe's part, because I would have asked him, where are the sequels? Because the ending of that film teases 999 sequels, and I desperately need those sequels. So hop on it.
Yeah, Russell Crowe is one to talk. Was that the same interview he gave recently where he was talking negatively on Gladiator 2?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I obviously didn't listen to that whole podcast, but yeah, I don't know. So at any rate, more Pope's Exorcist. So last week was episode 666 is the moral of the story. And we talked about the devil of Hollywood, digging into the whole Netflix and Warner Brothers debacle. Certainly had a lot of fun with that. And speaking of bonus content, on that same episode with Sam, Brendan and I do chime in a little bit more on the topic, because last week or over the weekend, it was announced that Warner Brothers is creating a spin-off label that was created by former Neon employees. And essentially, they're creating a Neon 2.0, version 2.
Yeah.
only under the label of
Yeah.
Warner Brothers this time around.
Neon color WB is basically what this is.
Exactly. So I hope it's the same neon logo, but they just put a WB little logo in the top corner.
Yeah, or it's like the WB logo, but like lit up
But
like
it's
the
lit up.
neon logo. It's
Okay, either way, I think that works. So I'm curious about that. Brendan and I go into that on this week's bonus content. So again, if you want to check that out, patreon.com/InSessionFilm, Apple Podcast subscriptions, or if you watch us here on YouTube, you can become a member of the channel and you'll get access to that bonus content as it's coming out very, very soon. On this week's show, we're going to keep it pretty straightforward because, as you all know, especially by the time this episode goes out, it is Christmas, y'all. We are celebrating with our families. There is so much going on. It's very, very exciting. We all love this time of year. So
indeed.
This week's show is going to be a lot less sophisticated. We are pretty much going to be doing a catch-up episode here. And that's really all we're doing. I mean, we're going to be talking about some movies that we've seen over the last weeks and months that we haven't had a chance to review in any sort of official capacity or really talk about. So we're going to bring up some of those movies here. And that's really it. I don't really have much in terms of a Stingray update anyway.
No Christmas themes or anything like that.
No, I mean, there were a few newbies that I hadn't seen before, such as Little Women, Greta Gerwig's Little Women, to be specific. I thought was really fun. Saw that for the first time.
No, little score motifs from the holdovers or anything like that.
No holdovers. I thought it was really funny. Again, one of those things where your technology is seemingly listening to you, because I was finishing the Chinese film Caught by the Tides, which I'll probably bring up here in a little bit.
Okay.
And what do I see on Stingray as I'm finishing that movie? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, of course. That comes up.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah, and I thought that timing was serendipitous. Stingray just knows
Big
what I'm
Brother's
doing.
always listening.
Yeah. So saw that. Saw Little Mockingjay Part 1, which I will always defend that movie. I don't care.
Well, that one's pretty good. I think you like it a little bit more than I do, but I actually think that's a pretty good movie because it's actually not really an action movie. That's a socio-political sci-fi thriller is what that is.
I like it for the same reasons I love something like Deathly Hallows Part 1. It's less about the action and more about the character and emotion.
Mm-hmm. Deathly Hallows Part 1. What a movie. That's a great movie.
Very, very good movie. So, yeah, don't have too much in terms of a crazy, oh my God, can't believe this happened. Just a few interesting little new things that happened there. So appropriate. We're just going to talk about some movies we caught up with. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. I have a few more on my list than what Brendan has, but we do have a fair amount here where we do cross over.
Yeah.
And where do we want to start here, Brendan?
Great question. Should we start with the crossovers where we at least can just have
I think we should start with the crossovers.
Yeah. Is there any crossover on each of our lists that feel kind of like we have to tackle first? Maybe something like Rental Family?
Well, I was going to say there's a few here that are in the awards conversation, such as A Rental Family, and that's one I think we can talk about here. Yeah.
Should we start with that one?
Yeah, sure.
Especially because from what I understand, we do have a review of this one coming around the pipeline.
Yes.
So it seems like it's good timing to maybe talk about this one now.
Yeah, this is coming out very soon. It's recorded. I have struggled to find a time to edit this, so my apologies to Megan and Shadon. As they did a review for it, and I am going to get this out. I promise. Very, very, very soon. So yes, we will have a review of Rental Family coming soon. This is, of course, the latest starring Brendan Fraser. What did you think about it?
I'm really interested to hear what the women have to say about this when that review comes out. I thought the movie was fine. I thought it was a nice movie, and I enjoyed it for those reasons. It's a wildly clever conceit that it has, and apparently it's a real thing in Japan. I was trying to do some research on
Yeah,
this
I had read
idea
that
of
as well.
yeah, it's really interesting. I didn't know that going into the movie, but thinking about it further and doing some research about it as the movie was concluding, I guess it is a real thing, and it goes to show just how strict Japan's societal customs are, that this form of deception would be seen as acceptable for them as long as it keeps to their cultural traditions. I think that's a very clever and interesting idea. It is one of those movies that I hate to use this term because there's nothing really wrong with these types of movies, but it does kind of feel like the made-for-TV version of something like this. You can really feel the manipulation tactics trying to grab you emotionally, and I think it's made more noticeable because the filmmaking here is kind of unremarkable. I know Hikari is the filmmaker's name. That's what she goes by. I know she has a lot more experience directing television, such as the show Beef. I know she did a few episodes of that.
Yeah.
And it does kind of feel like a filmmaker who is playing in a cinematic sandbox, maybe for one of the first times, and they don't quite have a grasp on being a little bit more creative with what you can do with this type of intriguing premise. So overall, I think the movie would have been maybe a bit of a mixed bag for me, if not for some very sincere performances. I do think Brendan Fraser is quite good. The two supporting roles between Akira Omoto and the young girl, Shannon Mahina Gorman, I believe I'm pronouncing her name right, they were kind of the standouts for me. I don't know if I love the way that their respective narratives fuse together. There is a bit of a choppiness to it as far as the final product is concerned, but I think each of their respective performances in vacuums, I think, are really good. And I do think they bring a sincerity to this material on top of Brendan Fraser's performance that does make this movie overall worth seeing. And I do think that ultimately saves it in the end for me.
Yeah, I do like the film overall. It's quite charming. I don't think the film goes much beyond that charm, and I do agree with you that the filmmaking is mostly unremarkable here. And without really knowing that context that Hikari comes from a TV background, I mean, that makes a lot of sense because this does have a TV movie kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it plays up a sentimentality that would have pandered to the Oscars 20 years ago. This would have been a Best Picture nominee 20 years ago, probably.
Yeah, it probably would have. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It certainly has that vibe to it. I will say, where I will give the film a little bit of credit, and this is where Hikari, as a screenwriter, I think helps save this film a little bit, because there are some unexpected turns here. And that whole idea of a rental family, you're talking about the culture of Japan that normalizes something like this. We do not have this in the United States, obviously.
Right.
I can't even begin to fathom how
I don't know
we
what
would
this would be
respond
like.
to something like this. It's absolutely crazy. But what's interesting about the film is that it does begin to poke holes in it and why it is a bit of a facade, or why it's wholly a facade, but why people do it. And there are some subversions here in terms of rental family that maybe you would expect given where this film ultimately goes, and Brendan Fraser's character of Philip and how he pushes back at times with being an actor as part of this rental family. And that ultimately has some effects on some of the other employees here. And those scenes later on in the film, I do find interesting when, what was it? What's the character's name? Is it Aiko? Is that the character's name? I'm not sure. I forget which one it is, but she goes to a house later on, again, as part of the agency playing a role, but it fuses fiction with reality in a way that I found compelling. Or you think about all the moments here between Philip and, again, I'm trying to think of the character's name here as we talk here, but the older retired
Oh,
actor.
Kikuo, I believe his name is.
Yeah,
He's
Kikuo,
played by
yeah.
Kiro Omoto. He's one of the best performances in the movie as well.
Oh my, yes, very, very, very good.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about the performance is that he embraces Philip as this journalist. He's pretending to be a journalist that's writing about his career. But I got the sense early on that he knew exactly what was happening the entire time, but just simply begins to play it up just to reminisce or to have someone to talk to about his career and
Yeah.
ask Philip to go on this journey by the end of the film. And again, it really has nothing to do with Philip and the role that he's playing as far as the agency, but taking advantage of Philip being there to crystallize, to ruminate, to find some sort of fulfillment as it relates to his life. And again, like how the film goes about examining the effects of the rental family, there is a little prickliness to it that
You're right,
I
you're
did
right.
appreciate. So
Yeah.
while it is one of those movies that thrives on its charm and its sentimentality, and it really doesn't go much beyond that, but there are some rougher edges here at times, especially in the third act of the film, that give it a little bit of propulsive energy that I very much did appreciate. That kind of pushes back against that conventional
Yeah.
sentimentality. So it's overall it is one that I enjoyed, even if it's not quite one of the better films of the year.
Yeah, the movie is at its best when it doesn't give in to convention as often. But the movie does give in to convention probably more often than it should, because the concept itself lends itself for something very unconventional, at least when you think about it through the lens of American culture and how that differentiates itself from Japan. And that prickliness, I think, is where the film is at its most interesting. And it does raise a lot of questions as to whether any of these subjects are even aware of the fact that they are now partaking in this experiment without even realizing it, especially given the concept of a rental family being as popular as it is in Japan. You have to wonder how many times are people smart enough to catch on to the lie? And if they are, do they just roll with it because it makes them feel better about the situation? And I do think that's a pretty interesting idea. But like I just, when it doesn't give into those conventions as often, I do think it is rather intriguing. The performances here are very sincere in adding a conversational element to this, and making you think about the reservations of this type of material. And I do think it is one of those movies, as we sort of alluded to, context does really matter when it comes down to enjoying this movie. And that context being at least being aware that this is a real thing in Japan. I actually think that helps heighten the experience. And also knowing that this does come from a Japanese filmmaker. I think that helps add a lot of context to it, that this is someone that is very much familiar with this concept. At least you can probably assume that she is, and is actually willing to make a bold choice in having a conversation about that and critiquing that. If this were an American filmmaker, the movie kind of collapses on itself. Like just the idea of that, because then it feels as though it's someone who belongs to a completely different culture who has no right criticizing someone else. Like that's what it would feel like, even if the movie were exactly the same as we get here. But knowing that it's a Japanese filmmaker, that context does add a little bit more of an acceptability to it, which I do think helps.
And it gives the film an earnestness that, again, I think helps elevate those edges that we've been talking about when those reveals come near the end of the film. Because there's one significant reveal. I guess I won't give it away because it's quite the jarring turn. But as I noted, I love what we see here with the older actor, what we see with Aiko and what she does near the end as far as blurring reality and fiction.
Yeah.
But there's one other turn with a pretty significant character here as far as the rental agency is concerned. His involvement, his leadership within the family agency rental, and how like what his personal life is. I'll keep it as vague as that for now. But when
I'll
that
say-
turn comes, I admittedly did not see that coming.
I was
but
just gonna say I feel like I should have seen it coming because the seeds are pretty obvious when you go back and think about it.
I agree.
But whatever Hikari is doing as a filmmaker to disguise that for us, I was admittedly disguised from recognizing it. Yeah.
I agree. And I think it's just this incredible bomb that goes off in the film that, again, just pushes back against how effective all of this is. Sure. It's certainly a way to make a living. It's clearly ingrained in the culture enough that people are willing to pay for it. Yeah. So from a business perspective, it makes sense that it's something they would do. But personally, you do see the toll that it takes, both on those that are renting these actors and those that are employees of the agency.
Yeah.
And again, I find those reveals quite interesting. So this is again, it's a film that it's not going to make a lot of year-end lists necessarily. And it's going to be overlooked given a lot of the great films that we've seen over the last 2 months. But like, I would take this over a lot of other standard Oscar fare, quote unquote Oscar fare that we've gotten over the last 30 years.
The concept itself elevates it above most of those others, I would agree.
And I love that it's willing to be a little rough around the edges near the end of the film.
You know who would have made a masterpiece version of this movie? Hirokazu Koreeda.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Koreeda would have absolutely destroyed this material. Would have ate it up. Would have absolutely ate it up.
Would have been the best movie of the year.
100%. Yeah, love Koreeda. Would have loved to have seen his version of this. And who knows? Maybe we will one day.
Maybe.
All right, let's shift from there. I guess speaking of Oscar fare, let's delve into the Taiwanese entry for Best International Feature.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't seem as if this film is going to get in, if the pundits are correct in their predictions. But we do love Sean Baker. And Sean Baker, a lot of people may or may not know, has collaborated with Xing Sao. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, forget, but they've collaborated pretty much from the beginning. They've been together for a long time.
Yeah, I know. Hasn't she has produced and maybe even co-written some of Sean Baker's films in the past, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I think if I read correctly, they've been together, I mean, going back 2 decades at least.
They co-directed a movie back in 2004 called Takeout.
Yes. That's exactly. So they've been together for a long time. And after winning the Oscar last year, Xing Sao has her own film out this year, which she did co-write with Sean Baker. So Baker is all over this. And I think Sean actually edited this film as well, because of course he did.
That tracks. Because my first thought I'm going to say about this movie absolutely ties back to the Sean Baker editing process.
Yeah. So Left-Handed Girl, the Sean Baker team, if you will, at play once again here. What did you think about Left-Handed Girl?
As I was watching it, I was really desperately trying to see it as its own thing. And yet there are many moments, especially the way that the camera lingers, the way that the camera sometimes follows certain characters on top of mopeds, just like the almost guerrilla style of it all, where I just couldn't help but think of the Florida Project. This is basically
the
Florida
Taiwan Project is all over this movie.
This is the Taiwanese project. That is essentially what this is.
It might as well be called that. Yeah.
I mean, even some of the familial dynamics here are not too dissimilar from what we saw with the Florida Project. The young girl here, I think the young girl is Yi Jing, played by Nina Ye, I believe, who is really quite charming in this movie. She is quite adorable. But the relationship that she has with her older sister, I believe her older sister is Janelle Tsai, the Shu Fen character, if I'm not mistaken, did kind of have like it kind of had like a Bria Vinay, Brooklyn Prince kind of dynamic in a way.
It very much does. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't bring these comparisons up to say that it's a negative on the movie. Admittedly, it was a little bit distracting because I kept seeing those parallels. But at the same time, I do think this is an effective movie that kind of similarly to something like Rental Family, which we just talked about, is a movie that's kind of about deconstructing the usual customs of Asian culture specifically. And we especially get that in this film's final act, which I won't reveal the what of it all, but this builds to a bit of a monster twist that I did not see coming.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild, honestly.
It is.
But it's all about kind of deconstructing those traditions that many people, whether it be Chinese, Taiwanese, hold in such high regard as it relates to work status and money. Those are things that they consider very valuable, and they judge people harshly depending on what their status is. And this is a movie that's all about deconstructing that in a very makeshift family kind of way. So I do think it is a very effective film. And very interesting to see this Sean Baker style tailored to something that is anything but middle America, which I found really fascinating.
Yeah, I had a lot of similar thoughts. I could not separate this from that Sean Baker ethos, but I don't think it's really meant to be. I don't think they're trying to hide that at all. Yeah. They've been collaborative partners for a long time. And as we noted earlier, Baker co-wrote the screenplay. He's editing this film. It just makes sense that the Sean Baker influence would be here, but maybe it's not a Sean Baker influence. Maybe it's just the collaborative style. We've always called them Sean Baker films, but Shi Ching Zhao has always been there in a lot of ways. Yeah. Maybe it's the both of them. It's their collaborative process that has crafted what we call Sean Baker movies, because he's directed most of their collaborative efforts outside the 2004 film, as you mentioned earlier, where they co-directed that.
Yeah.
And even
actually, sorry to cut you off, but I'm looking at Xing Zhao's filmography on Letterboxd here, and it looks like the only one of Sean Baker's films that she wasn't as closely tied to was Honora, which is maybe the one that feels the most separated from this kind of style.
Yeah. And I could see that, because Honora, while it's still very Sean Bakery for sure, it is distinctive from something like the Florida Project and Red Rocket.
It's more cinematic.
Yeah, for sure. So like, I think Baker and Zhao just have a vibe and an energy that they've always known working together, and that's just very much felt here. Yeah. So I say all that to say it might be less of an influence and just something that has always been a part of their partnership.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
So it makes sense that this film would have that same feel and vibe, and it very much is. Yeah. And I agree with you. I mean, we can joke about it, but the Florida Project is all over this movie, but I say that very complimentary. I love how this film plays out like the Florida Project. Look, if you're going to mimic a film, the Florida Project is a great one as far as I'm concerned. I deeply love that movie. Deeply love it.
Me too. One of the best of the 2010s.
Create a Taiwanese version of that here, I think is really great. And especially because of the cultural specificity that we see here, a little bit like what we were just talking about with Rental Family. I love how this film goes about examining the challenges of this family caught in generational biases and cultural stigmas, in particular the women of this family. And the film very much emphasizes the women of this family from all stages of life. We have a young girl, her sister, who is a teenager, I think recently graduated from high school. There's a scene here where some of her classmates ask her about university and why she's not going to university. So she's in that coming of age territory still in a lot of ways. But then we also see her mom, her aunts, her grandma is all part of this. So we see these women from all stages of life who are having to carry the burden of all of the problems that we see here that it stems from this family. and the men get off scotch-free at every turn.
Yeah,
And
they
so
either
this
get off
film-
easy or they die.
Absolutely. and a lot of the commentary here is about those cultural stigmas and how women are having to play a role or fall into some sort of role because that's what's expected. But in a lot of ways, they're trying to push beyond that, push back against it, which is heightened all the more in the final 20 minutes of this film. For all the reasons you mentioned earlier, there is a major reveal that you do not see coming at all.
It veers dangerously close to melodrama, and it kind of is melodrama, but it does work in the moment. It very much works in the moment.
And it's melodrama that works because, again, of the cultural layers at play.
Yeah, there's a purpose to it.
There is a purpose to it. And how they have to play a role because of cultural stereotypes or expectations is perhaps a better way to phrase it. And they think by playing into those expectations and those stereotypes that their lives will be better benefited from that. Mm-hmm. But there's also the emotional element of it that is sometimes hard to suppress.
Yeah.
They are human beings after all. And when you get pushed to a corner and you're feeling like you're stuck or that everything is coming down on you, the only response to have there is just to completely burst through it all. And that's very much what happens. And it's admittedly quite satisfying to see that catharsis there.
Honestly, it's a hard thing to pull off, playing with melodrama like that and not feeling overly distracted by the melodrama of it all. And I do think this movie mostly gets away with that. There's one particular moment of melodrama that I probably could have done without, admittedly. And maybe it's more of a selfish thing, just a me thing personally, but I'll keep it vague. There's a moment involving a meerkat, I'll simply say. And I don't necessarily mind something big like that happening to support the symbolism of young Yijing's left hand, that she is left-handed, and that is historically seen as the devil hand in Taiwanese culture.
Thanks, Grandpa.
I know, thanks, Grandpa. But it is one of those things where a movie like this that has some melodramatic tendencies already, the second an animal is introduced, you kind of think, well, this is not going to end well. So you're kind of set up for it already, and maybe I wish it did something a little bit different as far as not choosing an animal to emphasize that point, if that makes sense. But I do like what you're saying about how this is primarily from the perspective of women who have to carry that burden of status and stigma in a culture that very much looks at them as needing to have a particular role. And this is a family that is only women. So they're always feeling judged by it's not really about them being more poverty stricken than some of their direct family members. It's the fact that they are women trying to make it on their own, and they're not playing the traditional role of what a woman should be in this culture. And there are eyes on them all the time for those reasons, and you can always sense that onlooking. It's almost something kind of dangerous at every turn because they're always being watched and judged because of it.
I agree. I mean, I don't know if the film needed it necessarily, but I do think it adds further weight to the idea that these women are having to carry those burdens. I joke, but the whole reason that moment even happens is because she's been told that her being left-handed is the devil's work. And that comes directly from the grandfather figure here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when that moment happens and we see the aftermath of it, who carries the emotional weight of that? It's not Grandpa. Grandpa don't care.
No.
Grandpa don't care, and they don't push back against him.
Like I said, he gets off easy.
The sister sort of eventually pushes back a little bit, but not really. It's just these women have to carry the emotional weight of that. Or you think about how her left hand gets her in trouble as a result of her grandpa telling her these stories. Mm-hmm. She steals all of these items.
Yeah. And blames it on her left hand.
And blames it on her left hand. It's the devil doing his work. It's not me. It's the devil.
That's such a child trying to get away from getting away with something like that. I love it.
But again, I think that comes from a genuine place of I have this evil in me, And she believes that because of what her grandfather tells her.
Yeah.
But the aftermath of it, again, it's not like the grandpa apologizes and said, we should take these things back. And I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. No,
there's never an epiphany like that.
That have to deal with those ramifications. It's the sister that takes control and tries to weasel out those lies and myths about her left hand, and that her left, that's perfectly fine. So like, again, it's the women that have to carry the burden of all of that. So like those two examples, like it just helps give more thematic weight to it. So that's why I think ultimately it is effective here. Even if the animal moment is a little bit too extreme, maybe, but again, I like how it builds this emotional aftermath, and the grandpa's just nowhere to be found.
No, absolutely. I do want to correct myself. I misspoke earlier by saying the sister was played by Janelle Tsai, and that is actually the one who plays the mother. So I did misspeak. Yeah. And I wanted to make that correction because I also want to compliment the actress who plays Eon, who is the older sister. Shi Yun Ma, I believe her name is. And I love the arc that she has because she starts off the movie as kind of the most irredeemable and despicable of characters. The Bria Venete comparison to the Florida Project, I do think is very apt when it comes to this character.
It is extremely apt. It's hard to separate. Like you can't, if you're familiar with the Florida Project, you're watching this and that just immediately comes to mind.
It absolutely does. But even so, with that performance and that character from the Florida Project and what Bria Venete brought to that character, even though she was kind of a despicable human being at times, you did believe that she had genuine love for her daughter, right?
Yeah.
And the same could be said about Eon here for her sister. And there's a moment where she learns a few new things about herself, and then all of a sudden she starts accepting more responsibility very gradually. I think there's a gradual nature to how that character grows and accepts certain things that I do think is effective. And I think her performance is very effective in emulating that too, without making it too obvious. Like, I think there's a subtlety in how that gradual build happens.
And like the Florida Project, those are pretty much non-professional actors, at least at this point. This was Shi Yun Ma's second role, I believe. First major role. So both of those performances have this raw authenticity to them that just immerses you further into this world that I love. I mean, they really did find the Taiwanese version of those characters and performances.
It's the Taiwanese Project. That is the AKA title tied to this movie is the Taiwanese Project.
Which I say very complimentary. I do love that.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, very good. All right, where do you want to go from there? We have
Great question.
Couple of more crossovers here.
We have a few documentaries that we also caught up with together. So maybe we can veer in that direction.
You talk about some documentaries here. Let's go with John Candy first.
Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty popular one. I believe it's still streaming on Prime right now.
Yeah. Okay. John Candy, I Like Me.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Great title. And I did enjoy this documentary. I'm kind of surprised that I did. And it might come down to two things. First off, just loving the man, John Candy. I'm a big fan of his. But I am admittedly, and I think you're kind of the same way, JD. I'm admittedly kind of cynical when it comes to documentaries about great artists that employ the artlessness of the Talking Heads approach, which this one does do. But I was still moved by this one. And I think it mostly comes down to how transparent Candy's peers and family are regarding his mental health and his insecurities, his physical image. This is a movie that's not cutting corners when it comes to taboo topics like that. And many of these topics, for some, and Colin Hanks as a director, they don't shy away from the pain John Candy was experiencing. He may have been a very sweet presence, but this movie doesn't sugarcoat things. In a way, it kind of makes his own name, his last name being Candy, it weirdly adds an irony to his life. And I don't know if that was intentional. It might just be like an accidental byproduct of his life and how this movie chooses to reflect on that. But I really appreciated just how brazen and transparent this movie was about exploring a man that seemed to be the most gentle and sweetest of souls on the planet. And there was more to it than just that. sadly, more to
Yeah.
it than just that. And this is weirdly a movie that's actually more interested in that sadness than anything else. And I kind of appreciated that. It sort of made me overlook the approach, the filmmaking approach here, which I normally don't like for movies like this. I very much push back on it. And selfishly, maybe I would have wished it still didn't do that, but I was
Yeah.
still able to not think about that and focus more on what it was telling me. And I was moved by that.
I agree. I love this, and I don't know how else to articulate it that is distinctive from how you just laid it out there, but I pretty much echo everything that you're saying. I mean, it is conventional in structure and style, and typically those don't make for my favorite documentaries of the year. But I do think this is a testament to sincerity and reverence.
Yeah.
It is extremely heartfelt and very much delves into the sorrow of John Candy, and I guess the irony of that, because anytime he was in front of people or in front of a camera, he was just the most loving and adorable figure in all of entertainment.
Yeah.
And I love how this doc goes about examining that duality here. And part of it is born out of his mental and physical state for sure, but it's also born out of a friend who overcommitted to projects because he had no idea how to tell people no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just
I
did
can relate to
everything.
that very well.
Yes. And if you don't know how to say no, you find yourself involved in all these projects that you don't really have the bandwidth for. And that takes a toll. It
does,
takes a
yeah.
toll. And the only way to combat that is by doing things that may or may not be all that beneficial for you in terms of your long-term health. And I love how this film was willing to go to those places here.
I mean,
and
yeah,
to-
like you're right about how John Candy really spread himself a little bit too thin. Most people don't even remember that he owned a professional football team in Canada.
yeah,
The Toronto Argonauts, I believe it was.
yeah.
He owned it alongside Wayne Gretzky and Bruce McNall. Bruce McNall, it was. Like he did a lot. The man did a lot.
Right along.
Yeah.
And wasn't just the owner, he was an avid fan of the team. He was there at all the games,
Yeah.
committed a bunch of money, and they were very successful at the time.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, at least from if my hockey podcast people that I listen to who are Toronto Maple Leafs fans, if they're any sort of indication, like that was the heyday. Like that is the best that team has ever been, is when Candy was fully committed to it. So he's there, he's watching all the games, investing all this money and just fully there for that team, on top of doing the movies and the TV shows and the commercials and God knows whatever other projects, and trying to be a husband and father and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just an impossible task.
Yeah.
An impossible task. But I do love how the film goes into all of that to give credence to why, toward the tail end, he was just a man who was suffering in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So I really do appreciate Colin Hanks as a director here, making sure that those conversations were not just had, but also captured. I can't imagine how difficult that may have been to even interview people like his own father, Tom Hanks, about that. You could tell things get personal when it comes to how these great comedians who worked with John Candy over the years, when they come out and speak about him, whether it be Bill Murray or Dan Aykroyd, Conan O'Brien, at times they almost seem a little bit uncomfortable when talking about these things. And it's almost as if Colin Hanks was really pushing for that and asking them to do that, even if they weren't really ready to do so. I don't know if that was the case, but I can only assume that maybe that's what was happening behind the camera and what was being asked of them. But if that is the case, I have a lot of respect for Colin Hanks for really going for it in that way.
And I think there's some credence to that, because I read an interview where Macaulay Culkin was talking about how he did the interview. He was one of the last to be interviewed. hadn't thought about John Candy in a while, but it brought up all of these emotions. And while he did his best to maintain composure on camera, he was very explicit about that, as far as, I didn't want to cry on camera, so I held it together. But as soon as I got to the car into the parking lot, it just all came out.
Yeah.
And I think that's a testament. And he probably wasn't alone in that, because I do agree with you. It does feel as if everyone was doing their best to, again, show reverence and love to a figure that they clearly loved. But off camera, afterwards, they probably had to have a moment to gather themselves. And it just speaks to how large and how lovable he was as a person and as a performer.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was in his prime when I was real young. So the Macaulay Culkin collaborations are certainly the most nostalgic for me, because those are the ones I grew up with the most.
Yeah.
But I mean, even outside of that, I mean, he was a very, very good actor, and I always loved watching him on screen. And it's easy to see why people would fall in love with him, and then to hear everyone talk about him despite some of those issues. Again, it's just a testament to sincerity and earnestness. That's really what this film is, more than anything else.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite John Candy role or performance?
Oh boy.
They're surprisingly all very distinctive from one another. So it even though they're all comedic in a certain way, they're different forms of comedy, different forms of lovable comedy. So I guess it sometimes depends on the mood.
I mean, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles certainly comes to mind.
That might be my number one. I know a lot of people have talked about how he should have been nominated for an Oscar for that movie, and I don't really disagree with that.
I don't disagree either. I don't know what other competition there was in 1987, to be fair, either, but probably, just looking at that performance on its own, should have been in the conversation if it wasn't. I have no idea. But
I think the first thing I ever really saw him in as a kid, I mean, I guess it was Home Alone, but I remember really being more interested in Uncle Buck when I was a kid, which I don't know if you've seen that movie recently, JD. That is it's a weird movie, man. There's no way that would get made today. I'll simply say that.
And I miss that. I hate that we keep saying that over and over and over again.
Yeah, the movie's kind of insane.
Yeah.
But
today, Uncle Buck would be like a Neon or A24 movie. That's just the world we live in now. Maybe Netflix.
It kind of makes you go back and appreciate those films, even if they weren't, loved at the time for various reasons. Sometimes sometimes time is kind to these movies.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and revisit that film. I always enjoyed it as a kid, though. I always loved him in Cool Runnings as well. And again, that's just a childhood favorite of mine, but
yeah,
he's so fun in that film too.
Also, gotta love Spaceballs.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, iconic there.
There's one thing in this documentary. I think it was in this documentary, because I know Steve Martin is interviewed at one point in this documentary, and I know he's given a few interviews regarding Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. How John Candy's reveal at the end of that movie, that big reveal about how he doesn't have a home and how devastating that it is.
Yeah.
Apparently, there was a long monologue that he was asked to give about his life. And Steve Martin has said the fact that they cut it out of the movie, he is so upset about, that he wishes was in the movie. I don't agree with that. I think everything that John Candy's able to sell in just a simple line of dialogue like that just goes to show how talented he is, because he fills in all of those gaps without having to tell us what his life story
the performance is able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just bring that up to say that John Candy just knew how to act in a way that also weirdly felt like he was participating as a screenwriter as well. And good actors know how to do that.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing when you talk to actors or anyone in Hollywood. I'm sure when they see or read a great piece of writing, they want to defend that piece of writing. But a great performance can condense that down to a sentence and
Yeah.
convey
Well,
the entire paragraph just in their
yeah.
performance.
And I don't say that to say that I think Steve Martin is wrong for thinking that, but he was in the movie. He was
Yeah, for
on the
sure.
receiving end of that. So
Yeah.
of course he's going to want that preserved. Like I get
Yeah.
that.
No, again, and I totally agree with you. I can
Mhm.
just understand reading a paragraph and having that feeling of, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is a great
Yeah.
piece of writing.
Yeah.
And then to see it dwindle down to just a sentence, I can understand that perspective. But I agree with you. It's all there in the performance, which
It is.
just speaks to his prowess as a performer for sure. Brendan, I love audiobooks. I can't stop
I do
listening to
too.
them.
Yeah. My wife is the same way. She's listening to a lot of romantasy books, as they like to call them. And
Yeah.
I'm here listening to like jazz autobiographies of all things. But none
Oh,
of these things
nice.
are alike. And yet they are all available on Audible.
They're all available on Audible. I know some people are going to be mad at me for this, but that's okay. Right now, I am attempting to re-listen to the first Harry Potter book again because hear me out. I have a legit reason why this time.
Mm-hmm.
My son has chosen, and I did not pick this. He did this all on his own.
Okay.
He chose to read that as for a book report he's got to do for school.
Oh, okay. So
he's eventually going to need dad's help when it comes time to writing, the actual report out. So I am catching back up with that film.
Proper homework. I love it.
Book. Yeah, I'm doing some homework so that way when we go to do the report, I can help fill in some of the details there for him. So
Okay.
this is a dad homework assignment.
Hey,
Legitimately,
look at
a
that.
dad
Audible is
homework
helping
assignment.
you do your son's homework.
Exactly. So that's what this is. So that's currently where I'm at with Audible. But I noted this the last time we talked about Audible, Train Dreams. I have downloaded. I'm about halfway through the book. And
Oh.
it is admittedly way different than I anticipated it to be.
Is it
It
Will
does
Patton narrating it?
Yes, and he's
It is?
very
Okay.
good. He's very
Okay.
good. But the book does not, like the screenplay does not follow the book wholly, which is fine. It's an adaptation.
Yeah.
So it makes some changes, and I'm like, wow, they made a bunch of changes.
This is what I love about
way different
adaptations
order.
that do that. Like each medium can exist as its
Yes.
own thing, so you can enjoy both of them for different reasons. You have
Yeah,
both.
Absolutely. And I think the film actually made the right call because there are some scenes in the movie, some characters even, that carry way more weight in the movie than they do in the book.
Okay.
And in order for that weight to come through in the film, you had to present them differently.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah, again, just when you put it from that perspective, the screenplay and the adaptation process, you're like, maybe that is the best screenplay for best adapted screenplay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah,
Audible's
fair.
great because you can read a ton of stuff there. They have everything you want, whether it's books that eventually turn into movies. It could be music books, as Brendan is talking about. Could be homework that you got to do to help with your son.
Could
whatever
be
it
business
is.
books, marketing books.
Yeah, it's all
they
there.
have over 150,000 titles for you to choose from for any device: iPhone, Android, Kindle,
all there.
MP3 player. It's all there, all at your fingertips.
Absolutely. audibletrial.com/InSessionFilm. Click that link and you will get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial. It's the best. So no matter what book you want to get, it's all there. It's great. Again, audibletrial.com/InSessionFilm. Click on that link, and we thank Audible for their support. All right, Brendan, the only way I'm surviving the holidays, and look, this episode's going to go out around Christmas, very close to the actual day. And the only way I'm getting through any of this is with coffee.
Oh, it's needed. It's needed, not just for the holidays of Christmas specifically, but we're also gearing up for New Year's. There's going to be a lot of coffee needs around that time as well.
Absolutely. The InSession Film Awards are coming up soon. We're going to need coffee to get through those episodes.
Coffee's a necessity when it comes to that long award show.
Yes, absolutely. I got our Spotify Wrapped here pretty recently, and it, it gives you all this data. And our most listened to episode of all of 2025 was our InSession Film Awards back in January.
Of course it was. Of course it was. And the only way we got through that episode was thanks to the fuel we got from Coffee Cult.
Thanks to Coffee Cult, because they're longer episodes than usual. It's an award show after all.
Yeah.
So we need our coffee, and that's why we love Coffee Cult, coffeecult.com, coffee with a K, call with a K, coffeecult.com. Go check them out. I mean, they source specialty grade coffee, so it's only the best coffee in the world.
Yeah.
And they work directly with the farms. They only source farms that are doing it the right way, doing it ethically. So they take all of that into consideration, and it just makes for the best coffee. You can taste it on its own terms without putting any milk or sugar or anything into it. The coffee has incredible flavor notes that you can't get from the store-bought stuff that sits on the shelves for months
nothing
at a time.
artificial. It's all natural, all organic, and all sourced from farms that they do their due diligence to make sure that they are ethically sourced, and they also pay their workers very fairly, especially women.
Yep, all of that goes into what makes a great coffee with Coffee Cult.
Yep.
So, and right now they have the holiday blend, which is my favorite coffee in the world. It's so good. You got to check it out. I promise you, you will jump for holiday joy when you try that coffee. It is so good. Get it while it lasts, because once January comes, that coffee is going to go away for a while. So get the holiday blend. They have all kinds of blends and other single origins on there if you want to check all that out. Coffee.com, coffeecult.com. At checkout, use our code ISF25. They get you 15% off. Again, that code is ISF25. They get you 15% off. One of their biggest discounts currently. So go and check them out, and we thank Coffee Cult for their support. All right, for the sake of time, because there's more we want to get to. Let's go ahead and move on. That is a good doc, though. I very much recommend it. Documentaries, though, continuing that trend. Let's talk about the documentary Predators. This is not about the making of the franchise Predator. That's very different.
Which coincidentally has a movie called Predators, which I haven't seen in a long time, but
I haven't either.
Apparently has a bit of a cult following, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That one with Adrian Brody and Lawrence Fishburne and Topher Grace.
Yes. And there's also the 2020 film, The Predators, to make it more confusing. That film's terrible. So yes, there's a lot of Predator-esque films out there, but this is not about that franchise. This is about the Dateline NBC TV series To Catch a Predator that we all know. We're all very familiar with this show and how it works. So with that laid out, Brendan, what did you think about the documentary from David Ossett, Predators?
Yeah, so I did watch this show when I was much younger. And when I say much younger, I mean when I was in college. And at that time, I was probably like everyone else. I found the sting operations themselves, the form of justice, if you will, if you want to call it that, I found it entertaining. I did. And then watching this documentary, I realized I was part of the problem. This is This is a movie that once again just goes to show how prescient a movie like Red Rooms was.
Yes.
And it kind of makes you think, did this gross true crime obsession that we live in now, did it stem from Dateline NBC's To Catch a Predator? Was Chris Hansen kind of partially responsible for that? And I wouldn't say this documentary is coming right out to say this show is responsible for that, but it does showcase the ugly side of the publicizing such justice in a gratuitous way that maybe argues doing so doesn't make you much better than the culprits themselves doing this horrible act in the first place. And I think it raises a lot of great questions, especially given the history of this documentary's own director, David Ossett, as you said. He's making this movie for a very particular reason that he reveals at the end. And it does raise questions about what it means to maybe not receive justice per se, but about gaining an understanding as to why people would want to do such horrific things in the first place. And sometimes that's a more powerful thing than just publicizing and humiliating people, as entertaining as many people may have found that. And sadly, a show like Dateline ABC's To Catch a Predator just led to a bit of an epidemic in turning that form of manipulation into entertainment value. And we're seeing that more often now too. So it's a very powerful documentary that sheds light on something. And I guess Chris Hansen really is kind of a sleazeball, just given the way that he is portrayed at that final interview. I was kind of reminded of, was it 7 or 8 years ago when those 2 fire documentaries about the fire festival came out?
Yeah.
One of them was on Netflix, one was on Hulu, and the one on Hulu called Fire Fraud actually interviewed Billy McFarland. And every question he got, his answer was like, I cannot comment on that. I don't know an answer. And I guess without him even realizing it, he was turned into a giant idiot. And I feel like the same thing happens by simply interviewing Chris Hansen in this way. Does he not realize that he is made to look like a fool by the end of this?
Well, it's an interesting question, right? It is an interesting question. And I think that's what's so thought-provoking and stirring about this documentary, which, by the way, I think is just flat out one of the best docs of the year. I think this film is incredible. And I think a lot of it comes down to the complexity of it. I don't know if you'll find a more complex movie, especially a documentary, than this one because of who David Ossett is. And you are right. There is significant context that he unveils about halfway through this film and why he's making this documentary. And he expresses, to your point, that he was also part of that movement. He watched this religiously in his younger days as well. But once he found out the means in which the show would go about getting the predators on camera, there were profound disappointments that he experienced. Profound disappointments. And it was something that was laid out at the time. There were criticisms of the show since its inception. But I do really appreciate how Ossett goes about expressing those complexities of how they are entrapping these men who are not innocent. Obviously, they are far from innocent. We know that they are engaging in some shady, dubious behavior that isn't great. But this documentary wants to push back or question the means in which these shows go about entrapping these men and how it lacks a humanity, that there's this deep, visceral, raw humanity that never comes through in the final cut. You only see it in some of the scrubbed, unseen footage of the show that Ossett was able to get his hands on. And that's what we see here.
It's interesting to see how the raw footage tells a very different story.
A very different story.
Yeah. And it's not something that's necessarily trying to bring a defense to those who were committing these horrible acts. If anything, it's trying to showcase what their motivations were and why they would choose to act out in this way. It treats them as people, but also acknowledges that they are not good people. Like they are still criminals. They are absolutely criminals, but there's something more, I guess, satisfying for some people who are especially tied to this type of act in their own way, tragically speaking, where they might get more of an epiphany, if you will, by understanding what their reasons were behind the madness, as opposed to just editing it in a way that's clearly made to entertain people.
Yeah. And it's wanting to denote that, yes, most of these men are culprits that have that are engaging in, again, very dubious behavior, but it absolutely wants to showcase that the means in which they entrap these guys sometimes very unethical. And it leads to some pretty severe ramifications at times. most notably the incident in Dallas, which happened years ago. I don't think it's a spoiler to say it's a pretty infamous episode of the show where the culprit ends up shooting himself in the house as they're trying to get him. And they had no legal jurisdiction to be there. Yeah. And it was led by the cops. Like it was led by the cops. So it just adds all this remarkable complexity that this film wants to highlight. There's another episode. This is long after the Dateline version of this is over, but Chris Hansen is essentially doing this on YouTube and online.
Yeah, True Blue, I believe it's called.
True
is what
Blue.
He's doing. Yeah.
And it involves a teenager that's 18 years old. And it's just extremely murky. Extremely murky. And that incident was essentially thrown out by the judge, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was. Yeah.
It wasn't nearly the thesis and the fundamental idea of what Chris Hansen was trying to accomplish. That gets lost because he just wants to make it as TV friendly as possible, just to get the eyeballs on it. And if that means manipulating, if that means skewing the facts, if that means going after someone that really shouldn't be on the show, he's going to do it anyway.
Yeah, which is kind of devastating. It's even more devastating when the film leaves you on this, or it leaves you with this lingering uncertainty as to what Chris Hansen's motivations are. Because on one hand, is he doing this purely for television? Or does he genuinely feel like this act of manipulation is true justice?
And you get the sense that's what he feels.
And I think either answer to that question is kind of a bad answer, which is what's fascinating about this.
And not to mention the spinoffs that
the copycats
have, the copycats that are all over YouTube that are engaging again in this, dare I say, predatory behavior where they're trying to out these men. And again, these men don't need to be, a lot of them. Again, this film very much highlights that sometimes it's murky. It's not black and white. But a lot of them, it is black and white. They're very much engaging in dubious behavior and should be prosecuted.
By simply partaking in the forums and the chat rooms already, they've already broken the law.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and the documentary is not out to get these guys off the hook. That's not at all what it's trying to do.
This is not like something. I was weirdly thinking about this movie because I think it's also sort of predictive in something like this, but it's also not at all like these specific situations. But I was kind of thinking of Steven Spielberg's Minority Report, which sets up future murderers, but in a way, the act of doing this sort of predictive analysis kind of leads them to maybe act out in this way before they even commit the crime. So there's an argument to be made that those individuals in that movie never even broke the law in the first place. That's not the case here. Many of these individuals that were part of these sting operations had already broken some type of law. They're just now being tricked into some form of entertainment value in order to give them some comeuppance then.
Yeah. And as the show goes, it just gets more murky and murky in terms of its own means.
Yeah.
And it just, again, that's why I use the word complexity. It is a very, very complex and heavy situation. I don't know what the right phrasing is there, but
I get you.
The whole thing is very, very complex. And David Ossett wants to explore all of those complexities, especially not just in terms of the broad overview of, okay, well, these guys are doing some terrible things, but the show is also doing some terrible things. And so this whole thing is just terrible. And yet we're all glued to it. Like America is addicted to the show. And that's one element, the 30,000 foot view. That is one element, but there's also the personal element for Ossett himself, which again, I won't reveal here, but it just adds even more complexity once he inserts himself very purposefully into this documentary. And again, it leads to that final confrontation between him and Hansen at the end. That is subtly explosive.
That's a very good third act climactic battle if there ever was one.
It is
It's a
incredible.
it's a better third act battle than pretty much any Marvel movie of the past 3 years.
It really is. And then that line he tells him that he can leave is just
You're free to
glorious.
go.
But like, and then that final shot, there's final shot on Osid of just, I don't, like, he's still processing if any of this was worth it.
Yeah.
The show, Hanson, the spinoffs, this
Yeah,
documentary.
The fact that he's kind of left with nothing, like he has no gratification from making this in a way. And that's like, in a way, the lack of closure from this documentary is kind of what gives it its power. And I do hope that David Ossett is able to realize that. I hope he's not feeling any form of regret or grief for making it, because it doesn't really answer what he was hoping to have answered. And maybe the lack of an answer is ultimately the answer, that there really isn't anything to uncover with that. And I just hope by making it, he has come to some type of closure in some way, even if the movie didn't deliver the closure he was looking for.
I agree. Like, this film won't get nominated for an Oscar, I don't think. I can't recall if it was on the short list or not.
I don't think it
Maybe
was. I feel like
Yeah,
this
I don't
is
think it was.
a bit under the radar, unfortunately.
But it is quite easily one of the best docs of the year. And I have seen quite a few of those on the short list. Yeah, this is easily one of the best. I don't know if it's the best, but it's up there.
I just realized I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I think that's a typo.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, a 3.5 out of 5 is a very positive rating. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But this is not a 3.5 out of 5. This is a 4 out of 5.
Yeah. That's,
so okay,
that's where I have it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny when we do these catch-ups
Updating in
and
real time. I love it.
No, seriously,
I've done that.
funny.
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I genuinely, like, I could have sworn I gave this a 4 out of 5. I genuinely think that was a typo, or a misclick, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the documentary's there. Where do you want to go next? I think we have a few crossovers still.
I'm trying to look at my list to see. I think there might only be 1 or 2 crossovers left, because I know there's also the horror movie Good Boy, but I'm pretty sure you talked about it already. So this is more of a me offering on that one.
Yes.
I know you've seen Begonia, the Yorgos Lanthimos film, which myself and Megan Kearns have. Yeah, Megan Kearns and I already gave a full review of that, so that'll be more giving you the floor. There's the animated movie Little Amelie, or the Character of Rain.
Or that one too.
Yeah. Oh wait, what one did you say? I didn't hear you.
The Bad Guys too.
Oh, I guess we could talk about 2 animated movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, we could quickly go through those.
Yeah. Which one do we want to start with?
Let's do The Bad Guys too. I think we can get to that one pretty quickly.
I saw your Letterboxd review of this one, JD, and I absolutely agree.
Okay.
This is weirdly the horniest movie of the year.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
This
and Avatar, 2 of the horniest movies of the year.
This movie's way funnier than I expected. It's not great.
Yeah.
When it does become very plot driven, it starts to lose me. But there are moments in that first third where it's very loose and goofy and knows it. And I was really rolling with those specific sensibilities. The whole romantic angle here between I got to get the movie pulled up here. I'm blanking on the character names, but Snake and Susan, Snake and Susan. Like that whole, that's maybe the best kissing scene of the year.
It really is. I'm telling you, yeah.
And I really wish they didn't give it away as like the money joke in the marketing, because it was all over that first trailer. Before my wife got pregnant, we were going to see a bunch of movies together, and we would sometimes see that trailer. And every time that joke came up, she would look at me and say, "We have to see this movie. That is just so funny." So like in a way, the joke was kind of selling the movie, and it is admittedly maybe the funniest moment of the film, but it kind of weirdly captures the horny energy that's permeating throughout this whole thing that just made it kind of surprisingly silly and funny. I only saw parts of the first Bad Guys. I maybe saw about 75% of it. I can't say I finished the whole thing, but from what I've seen, I think this one I liked more, just given the sexiness of it, which I didn't expect.
I know. I did not expect that either. I did like The Bad Guys. I thought it was fun and charming. This also is fun and charming, but yeah, I do like those added elements. And again, the surprise factor. It is. weirdly titillating for
It
an
is,
animated
yeah.
movie.
Best romance
But
of the year, Snake and Susan.
it's really good though. I love that here. It's genuinely compelling to watch. It's slick. There's a hyperkinetic energy to it that you do see in the first film, and it very much comes into the fold in a big way here too. And there are just some really interesting twists and turns along the way. I enjoy it. I don't think it's I don't think it's one of the top 5 animated films of the year that I've seen, but I don't think it's too far off though. I don't think it's too far off.
It's certainly one of the
I enjoyed it.
silliest, and sometimes we
Cer-
need a little bit
certainly
of
very
silliness.
silly.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you gotta kind of appreciate that too. I think maybe that's the biggest strength of the film is that it's really an animated film that knows what it is and leans into it. Like it's not trying to win the Oscar for best animated film, if you will.
No.
Like it just wants to be silly and goofy and fun. Like it just wants to be a blockbuster.
Yeah.
Whereas some of these others might be more artful in nature and might lean, as a result, might lean toward awards. But that's just never the goal here. It's just
Which
really
is
silly
fine.
and goofy.
Which is fine.
and
I
sexy.
like how knowingly diverting that it is.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so that's the bad guys too. You also noted little Amelie, or the character of Rain.
Yeah. Not to be confused with the French film Amelie. This is not a prequel to Amelie.
Yes, or it could be. Who knows? No, it's not. But
Now I'm trying to think about that if it actually could be. No,
But
it's
they're
not.
both very colorful movies. So
They're
is
very
that.
colorful movies. I bet Jean-Pierre Jeunet would love this movie.
I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
Very much so. What did you think?
I'm having a bit of a complicated conversation with myself about this movie. I'll just come out and say it. This is my favorite animated movie of the year, and it's kind of not even close. But the reason why I feel that way, I don't know if it's because I genuinely think it's the best animated movie of the year, or if it's because I saw this when I'm about to become a girl dad. And I feel like that latter.
Which, by the way, spoiler alert, in case you missed our review of Marty Supreme, that was a huge announcement here on the show, and maybe not everyone has seen that review. So, yes, huge news, by the way. Huge news that Brett had revealed this week to everybody.
I'm about to become a girl dad, so
It's very exciting. Yay!
naturally, movies like Little Amelie or the character of Rain just hit me at this particular moment, and I was floored by this movie, primarily given that context. I think seriously, I was kind of blown away by this thing, and maybe it's also because there are many instances here that I was also weirdly reminded of The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. Just given some of the Japanese undertones. This is not a Japanese movie, but it does take place in post-war Japan, so that is very crucial. And the way that little Amelie herself grows, she's told that she is a quote-unquote vegetable by the doctor at a young age. And then at 2.5, she is all of a sudden talking, carrying conversations, growing and learning and responding to nature in a certain way that's very spiritual and godlike. And those ideas are very comparable to something like The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. And because that is one of my all-time favorite movies, and because I was reminded of that, maybe that's another reason why I kind of have these rose-colored glasses for a movie like this, and why it was so perplexing and so sensational for me. But I do think there is a spiritual undertone to this movie, even looking at it more objectively speaking, that I did find very fascinating. The idea of this young girl's growth being tied to something that feels very natural and spiritual in a way that Japanese culture very much celebrates. And it's just ironic that this is affecting a family that is not Japanese. I believe they're from Belgium, if I'm not mistaken. They're just living in post-war Japan. And I love the idea that the spiritual energies of Japan are even affecting those that might not actually be cultural participants in that. So I found the ideas of this thing quite beautiful. I love the vibe of it all. And perhaps the context of where I am in my life right now is why this is my favorite animated movie of the year.
I cannot begin to emphasize this enough, especially for our longtime listeners out there. This is a pivotal moment in this show's history because we have officially entered Brendan's midnight special era. We are
I know. I'm starting to
his
get
midnight
it.
special era. I deeply love it. You are talking about movies the way I did 10 years ago.
It's a nice,
so
it's a
deeply exciting.
pretty cool club. I gotta say, it's a pretty cool club.
Welcome. There's plenty of room.
Yeah.
I love it. Deeply, deeply love it. I will say Little Amelie might be this year's Mad Max Fury Road for me. I think I'm going to have to try to give this one another go before we get to the InSession Film Awards. I do really like it a lot. I did admittedly struggle for the first third of it. I think the film takes a minute to get going. I think it's a little uneven in that regard. But once it finds its footing, I do think it is the most endearing film you could ever watch. It is incredible. And I especially love the film for its unique perspective because it's this coming of age from a 2-year-old. That's Andrew. This is, it's a little bit of why I loved Good Boy from earlier this year, the horror film. It's just a unique perspective in an environment you never really see. Is the film perfect? No. Good Boy certainly has its challenges, but I think that perspective and the performance there is really great. Love Good Boy from that, that point of view.
Yeah, and he's a good boy.
And he's a good boy. And Little Amelie, it's a lot of the same thing. Like you get this emotionally complex perspective that we just normally don't ever see, especially in live action. You can't. How are you going to get a 2-year-old to act that way? Like he just,
or
that
can
would
speak
be
that
quite
way.
the
So
achievement.
let's just make her talk. That's what they do.
It is very, very interesting. And that's why I'd love to give this one another go, because if on a rewatch, much like a Mad Max and other films we've talked about on the show before, if that opening 30 minutes or so can fix itself on a rewatch, I might come around to that same angle as you. I will say, though, despite those reservations, the animation here is stunning. It is easily the most evocative animated film of the year. It is quite remarkable from that perspective alone. I think this is a film that will grow on me regardless of how I feel about this on a rewatch. So I don't know if it's my favorite animated film of the year, but it is certainly one that I will continue to wrestle with, and I do hope to see again, because there is a lot to love here, a lot to love with this film.
If you do give it another go, I'd be curious to see if anything changes, because those first 30 minutes may have actually been my favorite stretch of the movie, but that may also just be my current state of mind, my current state of life, bleeding into that, because I also do love where the movie ends up going after that. Like, there's a beach scene in particular that leads to a moment of action, we'll simply say, and danger that crystallizes in a way that kind of destroyed me, involving a younger sibling, I'll just simply say. I thought that was really, really sweet, and I love the way that arc crystallizes. I also love the relationship that Amelie forms with the family housekeeper. Nisha
very good.
And I love the intricacies that it introduces, the idea that Belgium was actually a participant in the war as an enemy towards Japan. And there are some people who are just not willing to look past that. And then this relationship, this friendship between a Japanese housekeeper and this young Belgian girl becomes kind of judged by the Japanese community for that. I think that's a really, really bold idea. And I think it wrestles with that idea very well.
I agree. So I'm going to be curious to see how I come around on a rewatch. That is certainly a goal of mine before we get to the InSession Film Awards. But regardless, I do think it is one of the best animated films of the year. It is quite good. So
it's also only 75 minutes. Love it.
Yeah, it's quite short, which is why I think I'll be able to fit it in before the award show, because that category, admittedly, I just go back and forth on, because my 5 nominees as it stands now, there's 3, probably 4 that I could flip a coin at this point.
Gotcha.
So we'll see if that changes on a rewatch.
There are still some anime movies I need to catch up with before the end of the year. I haven't seen Arco yet, which I've heard some good things about.
Yeah, and look, that's on my list here as well.
Okay.
I mean, I guess since we're talking about animated films, I could give some brief thoughts on Arco as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd be curious where you sit on this. I like it. I don't love it. I don't think it's able to bridge the gap between its world building and its poignant story. I think there's a lot to be desired in that regard. And I guess to be a little more cogent on that, the beginning of this film, like this is a time travel movie.
Oh, yeah.
And the beginning of this film, we're way in the future. It sets up this colorful cape thing they have to wear, and that's how they travel through time. And so there's a sense of world building that the film tries to establish. I think it does it poorly. And then when our central character finds himself in a different timeline, like those gaps are just, the chasm's way too wide for me. But
Gotcha.
once you kind of fall into what the story is going to be and trying to like this friendship that is formed between two characters, and there's a lot to love there. And then he's also trying to get back home. And by the time you get to the end of the film, like it's this grand reveal as to what happens. And there's an element, especially the fatherly family side of me, that just really wants to embrace it. But then there's the film critic side of me that goes, this just isn't earned. Like this just doesn't work.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a polarization there for me. So it is touching. It is touching, even if I don't think it fully comes together. I admire the ambition of the film. I will say that.
It looks intriguing. Yeah. And if
it is
anything,
intriguing.
This does look like one of those years for animation where there are a lot of intriguing films and more out-of-the-box options to consider outside of just your commercial entertainment. And weirdly, one of the most commercial examples of them happens to be one you would think is a bit more under the radar, and that is K-pop Demon Hunters. And yet that one took the world by storm. So it just goes to show that we are slowly getting to a point where we're beyond just the Disneys or the DreamWorkses and the Pixars of the world. There's a lot more here.
There is currently, as it stands, for the InSession Film Awards, when we get to Best Animated Film, there's only one film from the major studios. For
and
that
that's
category for me.
Zootopia 2, right?
Yeah, Zootopia 2. And I don't think anyone would push back against that. That is one of the better animated films of the year.
Sure.
Do really like that film a lot. We talk about that with Sam on this week's bonus content. Brendan hasn't had a chance to see it yet. I do really like it. I guess just to quickly echo again, since we're on animation, I really love the first film. I don't think Zootopia 2 quite gets to the same levels, but it's a great continuation. It basically picks up right where Zootopia 1 leaves off. So it's one long movie, those two. And I think it's a great compliment emotionally and thematically. So I very much did enjoy Zootopia 2. Yeah, that's the only major studio film animated from this year, American anyway, that I think would qualify for that category.
And I'm not rooting for this to ever happen. In fact, I was not rooting for this to happen for Zootopia 2. But just imagine if, hypothetically speaking, it was another Moana 2 situation. We would be in one of those cases where there will be no major studio films in the conversation. And then that's where Disney would be like, oh, we really got to change course here.
Yeah. And I'm glad that, well, it's funny that you say that, because I guess based off our conversation of the bad guys too, that would have been my fifth if Zootopia 2 was a Moana 2 situation. We're like, okay, sexy animals from Bad Guys 2. That's where we're going.
That's not as safe when you think about it.
No, it isn't. Like, that's probably my number 6.
Gotcha.
I really like it a lot for the reasons you mentioned earlier, but it is an interesting category this year. It is interesting.
Yeah, animation is changing,
anyway,
and I like it.
All right, so that's the animated films. There's a couple of more that Brendan and I have crossed over on, but I think we're going to save a few of them for an official review leading up to the InSession Film Awards. In particular, The Voice of Hin Rajab we have seen. I think we're going to give that one a full review. I think given the current climate, that one's worth talking about. The Be Gone film, Resurrection, we will talk about that movie too. I have seen it. Brennan is going to see it here soon. We will talk about that movie leading up to the InSession Film Awards. Is there anything else on your list? I think we've covered, if I'm looking at it here correctly.
Looking at your list and looking at mine, we've covered the ones where we cross over on. There's at least one that I do want to talk about briefly that I don't think you've had a chance to see yet. I can do that now, or maybe we can save that towards the end. Because
Either
there's
way.
okay. Well, I do at least want to acknowledge that because we are getting close to the Christmas season, I do want to acknowledge the Baltimoreans, which this is the movie where and I guess for a little bit of context, this is a romantic comedy from Jay Duplass, who is most known for movies such as Jeff Who Lives at Home, Baghead, Cirrus. He's directed a few of those as well, and kind of known for a bit of that like mumblecore romantic kind of energy. The Baltimoreans is certainly not quite as mumblecorely as some of those others, but it is maybe the one film from this year where my immediate thought after it ended was, I want to watch it again tomorrow. Like it's just
Nice.
It's one of those kinds of movies, and I like that we're in a day and age where these contemporary Christmas movies kind of look and feel like older movies. It does kind of have a similar sensibility, aesthetically speaking, to something like The Holdovers, but it's a very different movie, a very different energy with a very different emotional agenda. And I think the movie is low-key kind of great. I think Michael Strassner, who also co-wrote this movie, is terrific in the lead role here. His chemistry with Liz Larson is really terrific. This is definitely one of those movies that's in that conversation for best discovery for me, at least from a performative angle. There really is some great and sincere stuff here. And it's also one of those movies that also very much gives into conventional tropes, but also lets characters kind of reckon with those ideas, and they react naturally to these things. So it also feels very real. I very much recommend this one. This is one of those movies where I feel like I can recommend to almost everybody. And I love when movies like that come about. I think it is really sweet.
Yeah, it's been on my list to see for some time. Like it's there. I've tried to hit some of these, these quote unquote big movies for award season, but I do plan on catching up with it before the awards show. So it's definitely on the list.
I hate to say this because I don't like to discredit anyone for having an opinion on any movie, whatever that opinion is, but you don't have to love this movie. But if you come out of it saying, I did not like that at all, I question you.
Okay, fair.
There are some movies where you come out of it and you just can't help but think to yourself, who could dislike that? Like, who could dislike that? And this is one of those movies. I'm not saying it's like one of the best films of the year or anything like that. But even if you come away with it like, hey, that was a 3 out of 5, I enjoyed it. Okay, I get that. Yeah. It's a very easy movie to digest.
Well, if you ask Yorgos Lanthimos, a lot of people might come out of that film not liking it because we live in a tragedy.
I mean, that is Yorgos Lanthimos.
That's Yorgos Lanthimos.
He's kind of asking you to not like his movies sometimes.
Yeah, I guess I'll use that as a transition because I have a few here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, obviously, because we're running low on time here, but I at least want to mention a few more here. I did get a chance to see Begonia. I know Brendan had a review of this back in late October when it came out. I'm trying to recall here.
Late October, early November, somewhere around that time frame. I know I logged it in early November. Yeah,
I did really like this film. And I think I was reminded of early Yorgos Lanthimos. I think it's tonally and spiritually way more aligned with Dogtooth and The Lobster than any of his recent output.
I agree.
It is deeply cynical and sad, but also very funny and strangely beautiful. Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone are really, really great. In fact, I think you could make the argument that this is Stone's best performance in a Lanthimos film. At least I certainly would make that case, which might be a bit ironic because she's probably not in the Oscar 5 this year. Although I wouldn't put it past the Academy because they just love Emma Stone.
Sure.
So who knows? We'll see. But if she misses, it'll be funny to me because I think this is her best work in a Lanthimos film to date. And Jesse Plemons is just freaking incredible.
He's eating it up. I love it.
Very good. And yet the quiet MVP of the whole thing might be Aidan Delbis, who
he's terrific. Yeah.
So good in that sincere, tragic role. So really love the swing that Lanthimos takes here. That ending is wild.
I loved it.
So good.
When we reviewed it on the main show, not the main show, but the actual review for this one, it was myself and Megan Kearns. We had, I don't want to say we had a disagreement on the ending. She had some reservations about it, and I tried to offer a different perspective.
Oh, I get why people won't.
I get it too.
Sure.
I get it too, but I don't know. I guess maybe this is the cynical side of me coming through at my mid-30s age, but I kind of admire movies nowadays that essentially end by saying the human race is just really, really stupid. That's kind of what this movie is suggesting.
And we
in a way.
live in the dumbest timeline. We live in such a stupid timeline. I think that's what I loved about it too.
Yeah.
I understand why it might be too cynical or hopeless or cruel or however you want to interpret that.
Sure.
But I found it potent, as unsettling as it might be.
Yeah, I went with it.
I found it quite poignant, for sure.
Yeah.
And,
it got me thinking.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, the interpretations have been all over the place with it, but we do live in the dumbest timeline. So I think that's... I hear you, Lanthimos.
So even so, I guess an alien race is beyond saving us now.
Yeah. And look, as time goes on, I like Poor Things. I don't think I love Poor Things like I did when I first saw it. I think Begonia might be. And look, Begonia, in all transparency, is not going to be in my top 20 at the end of the year. Even though I still think it's quite good. It might end up in my 30 or 40. This is a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd for me, and it might be my favorite Lanthimos since The Lobster, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, I think
the
it's
favorite's
close.
really great though too.
I'll still take the favorite over this one, but I'm with you. I would definitely take this over Poor Things. I was one of the few at the time that felt a little bit distant to Poor Things, even when it first came out. And admittedly, I haven't really thought about that movie, even when it came out a few years ago. It has some intriguing elements to it, visually speaking, and it has a very interesting central premise for sure. But I do find myself gravitating more towards the Yorgos Lanthimos of Dogtooth and The Lobster, and even The Favorite to an extent. I think those are his 3 best movies, honestly. Those 3 I mentioned right there.
Yeah, and look, I still like Poor Things, and I especially love the weird performances of that film. And that film has its own ambition that's also unique and distinctive. I just love how Poor Things is antithetical to that traditional Lanthimos ethos.
Sure.
This is not trying to be ambitious in that regard, but sticking with that old school Lanthimos formula. I think this taps into a modern debate, if we should call it that I just think is very funny. Very funny, very strange.
Fair. I think that's
and
fair.
cynical. It's a very cynical movie.
I agree.
Anyway, I spent more time on Begonia than I anticipated, but I did like that film quite a bit. The next one I want to quickly talk about here is Sound of Falling. This is the German entry for Best International Film. It is directed by Masha Shalinsky. Forgive me if I am mispronouncing that there. This is a major work. This is incredible. This movie is really good. And I say that knowing that it might just be on the outside of my top 10. I think that's how high I am on my 10 at the current moment. But this is really good. Like, this is fighting for a spot. I think this film is incredible.
Okay.
I cannot recommend this to anybody, though. It is.
So basically, that means I'm going to love it.
I hope so. It is deeply haunting. It's this sorrowful look at shared grief and experiences in one location at this house spanning 4 generations on this German farm. It's fragmented yet cogent simultaneously. I don't know how Shalinsky is able to pull it off, but her filmmaking here is incredible. It is one of the most thrilling and evocative movies of the year from a editing perspective, from a cinematography perspective. Like this is a visual storytelling kind of movie, and the material is heavy. It is heavy. It's admittedly not an easy watch. It is poignant, but its observational approach, I think, leaves an impression that it just lingers on you long after the film is over. And I was quite moved by it. So I think a lot of this is going to come down to the fragmentation of it and how far that goes for you. I've read some reviews on Letterboxd. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, our own Dave Giannini was like, he wanted a little bit more cohesion and connective tissue. And I understand that. I think there's enough cogency there to connect those dots, but I just, despite the lack of connective tissue from a conventional perspective, the grief, it's a little bit of sentimental value in a way in that regard. A little bit of what we talked about with Left-Handed Girl in terms of the varying generations.
Sure.
Except in this film, we literally span different times. I think it's World War I, the end of World War II, the 80s, and then modern day. So like we're jumping gaps in time, but there's a shared grief, especially from the women in this film and what they experience on this German farm.
Yeah, it sounds compelling.
I quite loved it. I think it's very, very good. One of the best of the year. Speaking of, and I have no idea how to articulate this, but the Chinese film Caught by the Tides, saw this one as well. I am not deeply familiar with Jaya Shangaze. I have no idea how to say the name. Please forgive me.
The filmmaker for this one, right? Is that who you're talking about? Yeah. I do know the last film that they made was Ash's Purest White.
Ashes the Purest White. I have seen that one.
That very intriguing movie.
I have also seen Mountains May Depart. I really like that one a lot as well. In fact, I might prefer that one to Ashes the Purest White.
Haven't seen that one.
But those are the only 2 films of his that I've seen.
Okay.
From my understanding, though, a lot of what this film does is it takes footage and characters from his previous movies and he just inserts them into this film, like unused footage from those movies and also documentary footage, and to create one seamless experience here. And look, admittedly, and I think this is what's so fascinating about the film, is that admittedly, I don't have a full grasp on all of that context.
Gotcha.
And yet I was utterly blown away by this.
Hey, sometimes movies are just vibes.
Sometimes they're just vibes. And I think what's great about the film is that it's this look at time and how we are crushed by the inevitability of relationships and places changing, evolving, falling apart, especially in the world that we're in now. There's just this erosion that takes place, and it often leads to sorrow and grief, maybe regret. And this film is just quietly observing that passage of time and the effect on people in that regard, which is why, like, what I love here is that there's just a lot of focus on faces and people reveling in that sorrow and grief or uncertainty. There's a loose story here as far as a romance goes and how that eventually sort of dissipates a little bit. But again, just the blending of documentary and these scripted scenes, I just found incredible. And again, I don't really know the full context. I'm sure if I caught up with his entire filmography and then revisited this, I would be blown away by it. Because like, and I had that feeling. I had that feeling as you went, but even so, a little bit of like what I was talking about with Sound of Falling, in the sense that there's a fragmentation going on here. Maybe you don't fully understand it all, but there's something about the filmmaking, and this is a breathtaking experience from a cinematography and an editing perspective. There's one edit near the end of this film where we find ourselves in a grocery store, and you will find yourself in the air, just completely transported. You will.
If that's not a ringing endorsement, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the word, but like, you know, like those gifs of like your like soul like leaving your body because you experienced something so transcendent. That's kind of what that edit is like.
That's wild. That's ridiculous.
Truly unbelievable, some of the filmmaking that goes on here.
Absolutely insane.
It's also the best musical of the year. This is an incredible film. Now, like the way that
sounds
it
like an
uses
everything
music,
kind of movie.
Yes, like there's a very heavy musical element to this film where characters find themselves in bars or at clubs or whatever the case is, just singing songs. Like there's like music is such a huge through line here as well. That it's great. It's like, yeah, there's just a lot to love. Like this is just a filmmaking cinematic feast that I loved. So yeah, I'm going to be curious to revisit this years on after I catch up with more of his works. Good stuff. Yeah, I really like that one a lot. So those are the main ones I wanted to talk about. I recently caught up with the film Urchin as well. That recently that played at Cannes earlier in the year, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the Harris Dickinson directorial debut.
Right.
Starring Frank Delane, who we all know as young Voldemort in the flashback scene.
Yeah.
Was that
was in Half-Blood Prince.
Half-Blood Prince, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is just absurd here. He is so good. Like
Absurd, I like that word.
Really, really good. Like just as a character that you love to hate. He's despicable in so many ways, but you can't keep your eyes off of him. Like the kind of character that you would find in a Sean Baker movie. Just
Interesting.
kind of that kind of a role. And he eats it up. And some really inspired directing here from Dickinson as well. Did enjoy Urchin.
Okay.
Ballad of a Small Player. I'm kind of mixed on that film. Colin Farrell is great, as you can imagine, but kind of an uneven experience, I think.
This is probably one that if I don't get to by the time we do our award show, it's just because I have others I need to prioritize above it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think it's worth watching. I do love the energy of it, and Colin Farrell is just remarkable. Like it's got a great score too. So like there's a lot to like with Ballad of a Small Player, but it's not like if you catch up with this after the award show, that's fine.
Who does the score for this one? Is it Edward Berger's usual collaborator? Volker. What the heck's his name?
I think so. I'd have to look it up. Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I
Ballad
can't
of a
remember.
Small Player. I'm trying to type this out in real time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
It's Volker Bertelmann. Yeah, Bertelmann.
Volker
yeah.
Bertelmann. Yep, there you go.
It's the same dude. How does this feel comparatively to something like Conclave and All Quiet on the Western Front? Does it still feel of a piece with those movies as far as the filmmaking is concerned, or does it feel wildly distinct?
Oh, it's wildly different. Wildly different. Yeah. I mean, it's closer to Conclave than anything else, but like there's like a vibrancy to this film that can kind of match the melodrama of Conclave, but this film, like, it delves into its themes in a different, like, I don't want to say it doesn't take it seriously. It does, but I don't know. Like, to me, I think that is the disparity. This one is a little bit more hollow to me comparatively to Conclave in terms of trying
Okay.
to find that balance between energy and theme and character and drama. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's one key element in the film. There's a relationship, I'll say, with Colin Farrell's character that it's the pivotal point. It like drives so many of the actions of Farrell's character, and it's too feeble for me. It just doesn't work.
Understood.
So, as much as I love its feverish allegorical storytelling, that just it diminishes the film's overall.
That part doesn't
potency
really
for
work.
me.
Okay.
So yeah. I guess I can end there. I mean, I certainly have many more on this list that I could get to, but maybe the last one I'll mention is Eternity. Have you seen Eternity yet?
No, and that's been on my list for a while because I think my wife wants to watch it too.
Yeah.
And I'm mostly curious about this one because I feel like I've heard many people in our film critic circle say one of two things. Either people are really rolling with this one and kind of loving its relational energy, or they think this movie is a giant dumpster fire. Like, I feel like it's one of the two.
Oh yeah, I'm not on the dumpster fire side of it.
Okay.
I think it's really fun and charming. Yeah, like again, won't impact my year end stuff in any way, but it's real. I think it utilizes its premise in a unique and fun and creative way.
Okay.
That I really enjoyed. There are some twists and turns near the end that had me a bit worried. But it makes some choices that kind of remedy those concerns, at least for me. Maybe others will feel differently, but
Okay.
the pacing is a little uneven, and I can certainly admit that it's disjointed at times, but I think it has a lot of fun with its premise. Like, it knows what it is and just really leans into it in a great way. So aside from the pacing, my only other criticism was like some of the humor at times is a little too schlocky, I think.
Maybe a little forced or something like that.
Yeah, little out of place at times. But when it leans into its sincerity and its charm, yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had.
All right.
And
Good
I
to know.
enjoyed it. So, yeah. All right. So that's catch up. This will probably be the last catch up episode of the year because there's only 2 more episodes before we get to the InSession Film Awards. And those will be dedicated to our year end wrap up.
Yep.
As we kind of lead into the awards show. So I'm very excited to dig into all of that. We do have reviews out this week for Avatar Fire and Ash. Boy, did Brendan and I have quite the conversation on that film.
It was very fiery and led to some ash.
Yeah. Have already got a comment on YouTube where someone did not like my Force Awakens comparison, but it is what it is.
Well, they can go. I'm not going to say it.
Like, I don't understand how anyone else couldn't understand that comparison. Again, I'm not saying you have to like The Force Awakens
Sure.
at all, but let's be honest. The 2 films structurally are the same. Like, they are.
Yeah.
They just very much are.
I see the comment now. Yeah, that's
Like,
well.
okay.
I mean, I have a response to that comment that I'm not going to say online. Maybe I'll tell you offline.
Okay. Like, okay, dude.
I'll tell you offline. I'm not going to be mean.
Yeah, look, I'm not trying to be mean either. I appreciate you listening. I expected some comments like that, but
Yeah, there'll be some pushback for sure.
But I mean, come on. I mean, there's a lot. Like the narrative formula of Fire and Ash is verbatim the way of water. Does it do more? Is it more than its familiar beats? Sure, or at least it's trying to. So yeah. I understand, but The Force Awakens is an apt comparison. It just very much is. Anyway, that's a tangent. We have a fun conversation about Avatar Fire and Ash. We also have a great conversation with Jay Ledbetter, who came back this week to help us talk about Marty Supreme. That was a really fun review, so people can go and check that out. Rental Family is there. I got to find time to edit, so hopefully that's coming this week as well. New Women in Session, new Chasing the Gold this week as well. Lots going on. We hope everyone has a great, or depending on when this episode goes out, had a great
holiday.
Christmas
Yeah.
and holiday. We hope everyone got all the gifts they wanted. Santa came to your house and delivered.
Drink
Exactly
lots of
what you want.
eggnog.
Yes, maybe with a little bourbon in there as well.
I've got a bottle of wild turkey that's yet to be opened, and I'm going to be saving it for that reason.
Yeah, there you go. So I look forward to the holiday and spending it with my little kiddos, as we always do. So
Absolutely.
all right. With that said, and then next Christmas is gonna be real fun for Brendan. I cannot wait.
Oh, they're gonna. Oh, she's gonna be spoiled.
Yeah, we do our best to spoil our kids. 100%.
Absolutely.
All right. With all of that said, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the InSession Film Podcast.